Hi folks, it's Thinking Slow. I'm doing a quick update from yesterday's video, and this one today is where are the Russian tanks? I don't know if you look out of the window wherever you are, can you see them? Because we were told confidently that Wednesday there's going to be an invasion. We've given different times for it. I think it was 1 a.m. in Ukrainian time, Moscow time, it was meant to happen. So, well, I mean, for us, I guess, unsurprisingly, nothing happened. And I wanted to go through again, not just the hysteria that was created, but importantly, what kind of money and commercial interests are standing behind the creation of that hysteria, because that is pretty interesting. And so this is a follow-up to yesterday's video. So let's look at this completely outlandish tweet from someone from the Atlantic Council, and we'll take a step back and look at what's standing behind the Atlantic Council. So this was the tweet from last week, February the 11th. Putin has big weekend plans in Ukraine. Cut power and heat, knock out Ukrainian Navy and Air Force, kill general staff, then install pro-Russian president, and resort to full-scale military invasion if Ukraine doesn't give in. Now that's written by someone who's claiming to be an expert in Eurasian affairs and particularly in Ukrainian affairs, who works as an expert at the Atlantic Council. Now, you know, all this will be dismissed as this just a personal view and it's not corporate, but clearly the links to the website are there. The profile is there as an expert, and the Twitter account is also there, basically. So I don't buy this is just a personal initiative, nothing to do with the think tank where this individual is working. Today you can't get away with producing a tweet like this and not have it linked to your work in any way. I mean, this is extraordinarily dangerous and irresponsible when there's a lot of tension between Russia and Ukraine to write something like this. Clearly, it's going to make its way into the media, and that will also ratchet up the pressure, creating all kinds of unnecessary tension, stress for everybody involved. Extraordinarily irresponsible. And our colleagues on the Liberty Report looked at this yesterday and dismissed it as a sort of someone who's had maybe one too many espressos in the morning writing something like this. But actually, I think it's probably more than that, because if we look at it, the Atlantic Council, we get a bit of a hint about why this kind of hysteria might be acceptable there, because it plays into the interests behind the Atlantic Council. So let's have a look at that. So here we are then. This is the funding sources for the Atlantic Council, and the Atlantic Council is a think tank with a sort of annual revenue around about, let's say, $40 million, which comes from a variety of sources, which is government sources, corporate funders, and family offices stroke rich individuals stroke foundations. And I haven't spent too long on this because they're they're actually quite transparent about where those sources of funding are coming from. And they provide this list by size of contributions. So if you add all of these up, you'll get to roughly $40 million. So going through this, of course, are all the usual globalist foundations that basically seem to have their finger in every policy setting pie. I'm going to skip over those basically because that's for another time. But let's focus in on the ones that are particularly relevant to the Ukraine and Russia situation. So the first one we basically get to, hopefully you can see, is the Viktor Pinchuk Foundation. Viktor Pinchuk is the son-in-law of Ukrainian President Kuchma, and he is in his own right a billionaire through business operations in Ukraine. And in addition, he's funding the Tony Blair Institute and other activities. So, off the bat, I would say it's unlikely that he would have particularly warm feelings towards Russia. But in any event, he's an active player, let's say, in the Russia-Ukrainian situation. So, does this funding sway the work of the Atlantic Council? That's the question. Now, the next one down is Saab North America, a major defense contractor. Does a defense contractor benefit from increased tensions between Russia and Ukraine? Absolutely, it does. We go then up to the next column, see who else is in here. Going through this list, we basically scroll down, and there's a really big and important one right here. The Future of Russia Foundation, according to the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, this is basically based on the money of Mikhail Kodorkosky, who, for better or for worse, is probably, I think it's fair to say, President Putin's sworn enemy in Russia. He was the majority owner, or the largest single shareholder in Yukos. He was imprisoned in Russia and then pardoned and released. So he clearly has a very strong opinion on the Russian regime, which will be extraordinarily negative. And I think it's naive to expect him, through this foundation, to be providing funding and not appreciate that may well have a influence on the position of the Atlantic Council output, basically. And then, so going down the list again, we get to the bottom of this column. We're looking at Northrop Grumman, which is one of the largest defense contractors, again, would be a major beneficiary of any kind of military conflict. And then we basically, going the last couple in this column, we have Raytheon here, also a massive defense contractor, also would benefit significantly from any kind of increased tensions with Russia. Thales is in here, also has a very big defense sales division, I think about 9 billion euros, if I remember rightly. And then over, and you can switch to this column, Lockheed Martin, one of the world's biggest defense contractors. And yes, they would benefit from increased tensions between Russia and the Ukraine. And then the last one here is the Zagori family office. Mr. Zagori, who's one of the main founders of the family office and the philanthropic activities, is a Ukrainian or ex-Ukrainian politician associated with Pyotr Poroshenko's party. And again, does this money come with strings attached? Now, I'm leaving that as an open question, basically. I have my view on that, but you have to decide for yourself. But in any event, looking at this list, I hope you do get the feeling that the Atlantic Council is not some independent think tank sitting in an ivory tower weighing up pros and cons. They are actively funded by corporations and foundations that have a strong interest or position on this question, and that makes the value of their pronouncements somewhat dubious, and it's something that needs to be borne in mind. So just closing up then, I mentioned those defense contractors. So this is Lockheed Martin's share price compared to Northrop and compared to Thales. It's over the last 6 months. So the Ukraine pressure started being ratcheted up by members of the Atlantic Council and related think tanks somewhere about the end of November. So, I mean, in very round numbers, I guess you could say, these companies were having a fall in share price over this sort of second half of October into November. Then the drumbeat of war with Russia really gets going here. And I think you can see that from end of December onwards, all of these companies had a recovery in share price. So, the the point of this is, I'm not saying this is deliberate, and I'm not saying there's a direct causal link, but I'm saying that someone in that organization making outlandish tweets that then work towards increasing tension with Russia is probably not going to find themselves in particularly big trouble with HR or anyone else, because the funders of that think tank benefited, I would say, based on this, from that increased tension. So that was the main point, I think. I just wanted to say that, be careful, I guess, of these independent think tanks making outlandish statements, what's really behind them. And I'm just going to close out with this. This was, to some extent, a joke that was tweeted out by the conspiracy bot. And there's a Russian saying that every joke has an element of truth in it. And I think to some extent that's correct, because this was the Atlantic Council. If you look at the links between this and the Council of Foreign Relations, and then the Royal Institute for International Affairs, and actually the Trilateral Commission is down here somewhere. There's quite a lot of people in common, or more, let's say some people in common between these various organizations. So, I mean, wrapping up, I think for us at least, if we really look at how policy is set, it really is set between corporate titans, CEO of big corporates, foundations representing various kind of billionaires, and meetings with government officials. And that roughly is the formula for the Atlantic Council. It's the formula for the Council on Foreign Relations, and it's the formula for the Trilateral Commission. And we, the unwashed hordes, don't get a shout in those meetings and policy setting environments. And for us, I think, as I mentioned in the other video, there's no interest in any kind of military engagement really with anyone at any time. But that's not necessarily true. And I think I wanted to show in the case of the Atlantic Council, you have vested interests and all political axes to grind are organizations with those characteristics of funding that organization. And I am saying that may have an influence on the outlandish and inaccurate tweets sent out by an expert from the Atlantic Council. Thank you very much, and I will be doing another video soon about the timing of share trading and what shares were traded around the announcement of the lockdowns in Europe, which is also pretty interesting. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.